welcome to Cyber Focus, your source for international business information. My name is Sarah Koh, and our guest today is Dr. Azzam Alwash. Now, Dr. Alwash left his native Iraq at the age of 20 and completed his engineering degrees in California. Afterwards, he worked as a soil and environmental engineering consultant in Southern California for 20 years. Now, following the downfall of Saddam Hussein's regime in 2003, Dr. Alwash returned to Iraq to restore marshlands that had been destroyed. And soon after, he founded Nature Iraq, an Iraqi NGO working to protect, restore, and preserve the country's natural environment and rich cultural heritage. Now, for his relentless, inspiring works, in 2013, he won the Goldman Environmental Prize. Now, in this talk, Dr. Alwash will share with us the state of sustainability efforts in Iraq, and in particular, how alternative energy resources impact global sustainable development. So, Dr. Alwash, thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome to Indiana University.
Thank you.
Now, you obviously had a successful career, engineering career, in California for 20 years, and you decided to go back to your native country, Iraq. So tell us what kind of motivated you to go back.
Okay, so I had the American dream, and it wasn't all. You know, in 2003, when Saddam was removed, I figured, you know, I'll go back and work on the restoration of the marshes, because I've been working on this issue now for like, by then, about 5 years. And it's like, you know what, I'll take a break from work, and I'll go for 2 years, and I'll work on the restoration of the marshes. And naively, I thought this is a 2-year project. I'll come back and resume my life and career. Well, turns out it's a multi-generational and working on the environmental degradation of the Tigris and Euphrates, working on the biodiversity of the entire country. Soon that found me, I found out that the graduate work, the universities that I had left behind in Iraq, which were the best in the region, turned out to be one of the worst. And so I got together with other like-minded Iraqis and started the American University of Iraq in Slaymaniyah. And that's the problem. It's sort of like you go in and you know, 14 years later, I'm still at it, and getting involved in this project or that project, and it's all about the next generation.
Very interesting. So I want to talk a little bit more about your NGO, Nature Iraq. It sounds like there's a lot of major works and initiatives that the organization is tackling on. So maybe you can expand a little bit more on that, and what kind of major works it has, or you as well as the organization has been doing so far.
Well, okay, so when we first started, okay, I'm a scientist, right? I'm a tree hugger, but I mean, how can I help the environment? Basically use my scientific knowledge in order to help restore the marshes. So it began originally as a hydrological study on how to bring in the water. What's the best bang for the buck? You know, limited water resources. What you have to also understand that these marshes were evolved around the idea of the fresh pulse of water coming in from the Tigris and Euphrates in times like this, you know, in the spring when the snows in the mountains of Kurdistan starts melting. And by 2003, there were a whole set of dams built upstream. So no longer was the hydraulic system was the same. At any rate, basically we started by making surveys of the restored areas, trying to understand from nature what works and what doesn't work, so that we kind of replicate the other in other places. So I started hiring engineers, biologists, and water chemists, geologists, what have you, and started training them, because I soon found out that they're actually the graduate from university, but they hardly can read English. They even know not. And so there's a whole effort set on training about 100 people that have gone through the ranks of Nature Iraq on how to collect data, how to analyze data, and how to make sense of it all. And then that also took us to areas outside the marshes, to the source of the water, to understand what is the biodiversity of a picture of Iraq. As you mentioned, Iraq is the cradle of civilization. Everywhere we go, not only do we find natural sites, but we find historical sites, and it's a complex. So over the past 12 years, we have been working on the restoration of the marshes. We created a master plan for the restoration of the marshes, which was adopted by the government of Iraq. The government of Iraq in 2013 declared the marshes the country's first national park. we're about to come out with a report called the Key Biodiversity Area of Iraq, which basically summarizes 10 years worth of data that we have collected from 253 different sites all over the country, of which we selected 82 that are worthy of being protected for certain criteria using IUCN criteria. And of those, 10 that are in need of protection now. And my next step is actually to work with the government of Kurdistan, or the northern part of Iraq, the Kurdish region, as well as Baghdad, to declare all of these areas, all of these 10 areas, national parks or protected areas, sort of that kind of to protect them from the impending development. The development of oil wells in Kurdistan is basically going into the natural areas. So we're trying to protect these portions that for future generations, and leave them in as natural space as possible. We also came up with a project where we designed housing using traditional building methods which have been forgotten. You know, before the introduction of electricity, for example, every house in Baghdad was actually the outside wall was two walls with a space in between in order to isolate the inside from the harsh hot temperature in the summer and the cold temperature in the winter. We have the two extremes. When electricity was introduced, people did stop building high roofs, two walls became one wall, bigger windows because well, they had electricity to compensate for their conditioning. Well, that created electrical demand. Pretty soon, there's no electricity. We've forgotten how to build the traditional houses. There's no electricity. Now we live in houses that are hot in the summer, like ovens, and freezing freezers in the winter. So I feel that Iraq needs to kind of return to its roots. We have over 5,000 years worth of trial and error through which we came up with actual building methods that suit the environment of Iraq. And so I'm basically, this is what we're talking about, you know, just, okay, well, there's a historical site here, there's a wetland there, there's a protected area there, and so that work continues. But alongside that work also, reforming the educational system is part of the process. I found out very soon, because if I want to have people that work for me that speak English, that can use word processing, that can use an Excel spreadsheet other than using it as a table, as a typewriter. Anyway, the American University, I'm proud to say, we've graduated the 4th cohort this past year, and it's the two projects that are frequently cited by the press as example of success after 2003. I'm lucky to be associated with both of them.
You are doing some really fascinating work, I mean, along with the NGO that you're running. So, in your opinion, the NGO works with different countries as well, more specifically Syria and Turkey on...
Turkey specifically.
Exactly.
Syria, before the problem in Syria, yes, we worked with NGOs in Syria,
Sure.
but in the last 4 years,
Right.
there's no work in Syria. But yes, we're working with Turkey, yeah.
And in different restoration projects. So in working with your partners, what do you think are some of the biggest obstacles or hurdles that you've encountered in order to reach that really workable cooperation?
So let's not. I mean, the NGOs. We're the NGO that the partners I'm working with in Turkey are partners of the same international organization. Niche Iraq is a partner in BirdLife International, which is the same. Say the Audubon Society in the United States it belongs to the same network of NGOs. So we're kind of like-minded people. We don't have any problems working with each other. What we have a problem with is our governments. Okay, you got Turkey that says, this is our snow, this is our water, don't tell us what to do with it. We don't tell you what to do with your oil. Right? And so what Turkey wants to do is sell oil for electricity. Now, no Iraqi parliament worthy of the name will ever sign a treaty that exchanges water for oil. So what I'm trying to do right now, besides the KBA, besides the clean and protected areas, I'm trying to work with like-minded Turks, academics as well as NGOs, to change the dialogue from whose water this is to how we can make a deal. For example, Iraq has what the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers called the most dangerous dam in the world, Mosul Dam. It has 11 billion cubic meters of water. It has moved 5 millimeters in the past month. Everybody is worried about it failing. If it fails, every city, every village, every hamlet, from Mosul, that is in northern Iraq, to Basra, that's in south of Iraq, a distance of about 1,000 kilometers, 600 miles, will be destroyed. Forget about the people that will die. 500 people say 500,000 people will die. They will have an easy death. Try to think of providing housing, water, electricity, food, the logistics of providing that for 10 million people living on the axis of the Tigris and Euphrates. It's an impending environmental disaster that I don't want to even think about. Neither does any Iraqi government official wants to think about. And so I'm telling Iraqis and Turks that in fact this is an impending disaster that we can convert to an opportunity. Instead of fixing Mosul Dam, which the United States and Iraq are working on by spending about $300 million to do injection, which is basically what I say in my press releases. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound and pretending everything is going to be all right. I'm saying, look, let's decommission Mosul Dam. Let's lease space in dams in Turkey. Eliso Dam is about to be finished. If we lease it and store water for Iraq there, we will save 1 billion cubic meters just on the difference in evaporation rates from the high elevation of Eliso Dam to the low elevation of Mosul Dam versus the shallow. These are technical details. The point is, I am trying to get the Turks and the Iraqis to talk about converting the discussion from whose water this is to how we can cooperate.
Well, you mentioned a lot of cooperation and a lot of different works here. So wrapping things up, what do you think the public and the private sectors can do in order to embrace more so these strategies and alternative energy resources to maximize sustainable development and at the same time minimize negative environmental impact?
Well, Iraq's electrical consumption is huge. Every Iraqi household actually probably pays twice as much as an American household for electricity. You have the national grid, which is giving electricity for only maybe 8 hours a day, and even when it comes in, it's like a Christmas tree. It's up and down. They have the grid, the local grids, what they call 1 megawatt big generator, and then every household that the local generator will provide electricity for about 100 households for another 8 hours, and then every household has a small little generator that generates electricity for the 8 hours that you don't have electrical supply. If the private sector gets involved, I believe that the government will never solve the electrical generation problem for Iraq because they're always 5 years behind. There's corruption. There's all sorts of waste. The easiest way to solve this problem is to give electrical generation, electrical distribution to private sector. If they do that, they will actually reduce the cost for households. Because right now, I'm in Iraq paying for every household is paying $200 to $250 a month. Now, this might be not much in American terms, but this is about 50% of the income of one engineer. So it's a lot of money that is being spent on just providing electrical generation to compensate. And this is the tragedy of it, right? If all the houses were built in the traditional way, they don't need that much electricity. Be that as it may, this is the best way to actually reduce wastage in Iraq by converting electrical supplying and electrical distribution to privatization. I think the Iraqi government is about to do that. They cannot solve it. They're broke and they cannot put more money into it. So the private sector should get ready to go in there and take advantage of this opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Alwash, thank you so much for your insights and this great talk that we just had.
Thank you.
Well, that's all for this edition of Cyber Focus. Thank you for joining us. And if you have any comments or suggestions for future topics, please contact us at CIBER, that's CIBER, @indiana.edu.